Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a trip down memory lane before we get to Pam Bondi completely annihilating a number of Democratic senators. Hit subscribe to this channel politically, peacefully. Obviously, I'm speaking in a rhetorical manner. Through her responses and rebuttals, completely eviscerating these Democratic senators. With wit, charm, intelligence, logic, reason. She was fantastic. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. You will hear Pam Bondi and Adam Schiff and others in a second. This is a trip down memory lane. Mueller report finds no evidence of collusion. No evidence. Who was telling you that there was something in between direct and circumstantial, and there was this and that, and we should be suspicious of Trump, and there were certain Democratic senators who you will hear that perpetuated this myth. And the Democratic Party created an absurd, it was beyond a farce. It was probably one of the greatest lies in America. It was one of the greatest lies in American political history. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. Paul Bartlett, thank you so very much. To my super chat, thank you. Your support is greatly appreciated. Paul, I cannot thank you enough. In Australia, always so generous. Thank you so much for the super chat. Let's get started. This is Pam Bondi, and this is Adam Schiff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Bondi, as you know, the Supreme Court in Trump versus United States held the president has absolute immunity to commit crimes in certain core areas of the president's responsibility.
This is false. The Supreme Court did not rule that a president can commit crimes. The Supreme Court ruled that speeches, for example, were protected with presidential immunity. Speeches fell under the official acts of a president. Let's continue.
One of those core areas is the Justice Department. So in a breathtakingly dangerous and irresponsible decision, Justice Roberts and the majority held the president could commit crimes using the Department of Justice and be immune from prosecution.
This is categorically false, but let's continue.
Justice Sotomayor correctly said this new immunity lies about like a loaded weapon. So the fear and the concern we have is that the incoming president will use that loaded weapon, that immunity, to commit crimes through the Department of Justice. And for that reason, it is all the more important that we have an attorney general who has the independence, the strength, the intestinal fortitude to say no to the president when it is necessary. So my first set of questions has to do whether you have the independence to say no when you must say no. And you can say this is hypothetical, but it is not hypothetical. So let me start with one very specific non-hypothetical. The president has said Jack Smith should go to jail. Will you investigate Jack Smith?
Senator, I haven't seen the file. I haven't seen the investigation. I haven't looked at anything. It would be irresponsible of me to make a commitment regarding anything without, you're a long practicing attorney, without looking at a file.
So you would need a factual predicate to open an investigation of Jack Smith, is that right?
Not a summary by you sitting here. Yes, sir.
And not a summary by the president either, right?
Absolutely.
So a summary by the president or his desire to investigate Jack Smith would not be enough for you to open an investigation of Jack Smith, is that right?
I will look at the facts and evidence in any case. You know,
and sitting here today,
Senator, 72% of Americans have lost faith in the Department of Justice.
Sitting here today, are you aware of any factual predicate to investigate Jack Smith? Sitting here today, yes or no?
Senator, I will look at the facts and the circumstances.
You can't answer that question. You're not a part of the department yet. There's no worry about divulging law enforcement sensitive information. So just tell us, are you aware of a factual predicate to investigate Jack Smith? Yes or no?
Senator, what I'm hearing on the news is
Are you aware of
horrible.
a?
Do I know if he committed a crime? I have not looked
You seem reluctant to answer a simple question. Let me ask you a different simple question. The president also wants to jail Liz Cheney sitting.
There was no reluctance at all. If somebody committed a crime, setting up and framing Trump, lying about, for example, Trump being an operative of another country, if there was collusion in any way between federal and state and local authorities simply to go after a political rival before a presidential contest, well, that's against the law. I mean, all of this, they tried to imprison Trump before a presidential contest. You'd have to be a complete buffoon not to understand the overt, brazen nature, the political, the obvious and overt political element here.
Here today, are you aware of any factual basis to investigate Liz Cheney? Yes or no?
Senator, that's a hypothetical, and I'm not going to answer that question.
No, it's not hypothetical. I'm asking you, sitting here today, whether you are aware of a factual predicate to investigate Liz Cheney.
Senator, no one
Based
has
on
asked
what you
me
know.
to investigate Liz Cheney. That is a
The
hypothetical.
president has called for it publicly. You are aware of that, aren't you?
No one has asked me to investigate.
But the president
Liz.
has
We're
called
also
the-
worried
If Liz Cheney possibly destroyed records, she'll be investigated by Pam Bondi.
about Liz Cheney,
the
Senator.
president has
You know
called
what we
for
should
this.
be worried about?
Ms. Bondi,
The
please
crime rate
answer
in
my
California
questions.
right now
You
is
are
through
aware,
the roof.
Ms. Bondi,
Your
my-
robberies
Ms.
are
Bondi,
87%
my
higher
question-
than the national
my question
average.
is this.
That's what I
My
want to
question
be
is this.
focused on, Senator.
Do you have the
If I'm
power to
confirmed
say
as
no to the
Attorney
president?
General.
And what you're suggesting today by your non-answer is you don't have the independence to say no to the president. So let me ask you a
Did Merrick Garland say no to the Democratic Party when it came to trying to imprison their direct political rival? They literally accused Trump of being an operative of another country, which was categorically false. Then they tried to imprison him before a presidential contest. Okay, that's the definition of totalitarianism and authoritarianism.
different question. It also requires you, if you're going to be a good attorney general, to be able to tell hard truths to the president. So my questions now are, can you tell hard truths to the president? So let me start with an easy truth that you could speak to the president. Can you tell him that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election? Can you say that? Do you have the independence to say that? Do you have the gravitas to
Did Democrats have the gravitas to say that Clinton lost to Trump and leave it at that? No, they blamed another country. And then they accused Trump of working with another country. All of it was lies. They used a dossier literally purchased by the Democratic Party and Clinton. We know this because they paid an FEC fine. The Federal Election Commission fined Clinton and the DNC for purchasing the Steele dossier with campaign funds. Trump was never fined by the FEC. The FEC dropped the hush money case. A state cannot level a federal statute at anyone without the Department of Justice involved. The DOJ and FEC dropped the hush money case. Okay. Certain Democratic senators lied for years about Trump working with another country. That never happened. And it's like Democrats have blamed the usual country, that same country. They blamed Moscow for every single loss. Okay, even Hunter's laptop, and Hunter was eventually pardoned. Gee, wonder why. So he's going to go on and say, well, you know what? Did you find any evidence of fraud? It's like, well, there were irregularities, there were anomalies, and nobody investigated. These were the investigations were quick, rapid, haphazard. Public relations, recounts, and there was nobody that testified in Congress. There weren't millions of pages investigated, documents that demanded from congressional testimony, subpoenas. There was none of that. The Mueller probe, there wasn't a Mueller probe to investigate Trump's claims 4 years ago. And then Democrats ousted Biden right before this presidential contest. But anyway, let's continue.
the stature, the intestinal fortitude to say, Donald Trump, you lost the 2020 election. Can you tell us that here today?
Senator, what I can tell you is I will never play politics. You're trying to engage me in a gotcha. I won't do it.
I'm just asking you a simple question.
Won't play
if you can
politics
speak truth
with any ongoing
to power.
investigation,
So let me ask you another.
like you did leaking your colleague Devin Nunes's memo.
If you can't answer the question, let me ask you a different, what should be a simple truth, not a hard one.
Pam Bondi just accused Adam Schiff of leaking the Nunes memo, possibly could be against the law, and Schiff did not refute that.
Was there massive fraud affecting the result of the 2020 election, yes or no?
Senator,
the operative term that Democrats use is massive. They don't even deny whether or not there was misconduct. But it wasn't massive enough to. But these same Democrats say that Facebook ads and Twitter bots were so prevalent that Clinton would have defeated Trump, even though literally the Clinton campaign wanted Trump. That's according to Politico and the emails. And we know that not only did they want Trump, but there was not a shred of evidence that Trump worked with anyone else. And then Comey, or with any country, and then Comey wrote the Comey letter right before it. So Clinton lost, but Democrats still haven't come to terms with that loss.
I'm glad you asked that question. If you'll let me answer what I saw in Pennsylvania.
No, I asked a simple question about massive fraud.
I can.
Wisteria, hello. To my members, thank you so very much for being members. Thank you.
Only tell you what I saw in Pennsylvania.
I know you want to answer a different question, but my question is, can you tell us whether there was massive fraud affecting the results of the 2020 election? Yes or no? Was
not misconduct, massive misconduct. Okay, so these are these are easily deciphered semantic games.
I can tell you what I saw when I went as an advocate to the campaign.
That's not my question. So you can't answer that question. You can't speak that even easy truth to us, let alone to the president. So let me ask you a different question. It will also be important that you give good advice to the president. Are you prepared to advise the president not to pardon people who beat police officers?
Senator, as I said, the pardons are at the direction of the president. We will look and we will advise. I will look at every case on a case.
So
let me finish on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, good.
And I abhor violence to police officers.
Follow up with that.
How many Democrats pushed to imprison left-leaning demonstrators that injured hundreds upon hundreds of law enforcement officials in Trump's last year in office, where we had curfews and billions of dollars in property damage? Not what? Billions of dollars in Could you imagine if Trump supporters were linked to billions of dollars in property damage?
So will it be your advice to the president? Mr. President, I know you said you want to issue hundreds of pardons on day one. Will it be your advice to the president? No, Mr. President, I need to go over them on a case-by-case basis. Do not issue blanket pardons. Will that be your advice to the president?
Senator, I have not looked at any of those files. If confirmed, I will look at the files
and
for the pardons,
will you be able to review hundreds of cases on day one?
I will look at every file I am asked to look at.
Of course you won't. So will you advise the president?
Can I answer the question?
Well, my question
I would have plenty of staff. You said, of course you want.
You'll be able to review hundreds of cases on the first day?
I'm not going to mislead this body, nor you.
All right, let me ask another question. You don't want to answer that. Let me ask another question.
You were censured by Congress, Senator, for comments just like this that are so reckless.
So he was censored by Congress, and there were Democrats who pushed a great lie. The greatest lie is not that Trump had suspicion on how he lost to Biden. The greatest lie is accusing Trump of working with the Kremlin without a shred of evidence. And the only evidence was intel reports. And what if there were intel reports saying Trump was right about everything he said 4 years ago? What would Democrats say then?
It will also be important for you to be able to preserve the records, the evidence of the department. Are you ready to commit that none of the evidence in the January 6th investigation will be destroyed?
Liz Cheney is literally accused of destroying records in that committee.
Under your watch.
Senator, I will follow the law. I will consult with ethical officials in the
Do
department.
you see any ethical basis to destroy evidence in the January 6th investigation?
Maybe he should be asking potentially Liz Cheney that.
Then why can't you answer the question? Why can't you say, I commit to this committee, we will never destroy the evidence in the January 6th investigation? Why can't you give this committee and the American people that assurance?
Are you frightened because evidence was destroyed against President Trump that was false? Is that why you're frightened now? I can't believe this is even...
Why do you have difficulty answering that question?
I can't believe you're asking such a question.
Why do you have difficulty promising to preserve evidence at the Department of Justice? Why is that a difficult question?
I will follow the law.
It shouldn't be a difficult question.
So instead of, this is an NPR article, instead of baseless claims of collusion, we heard years of possible collusion. When Trump makes a claim that he doesn't believe he lost fair and square, these are baseless claims. When Democrats claim that Trump worked with another country without a shred of evidence, they're legitimate concerns. Mueller report finds no evidence of collusion. Okay, really quickly. This is William Barr.
Here, too, the special counsel's report did not find that any person associated with the Trump campaign illegally participated in the dissemination of the materials. Finally, the special counsel investigated a number of links or contacts between the Trump campaign officials and individuals connected with the Russian government during the 2016 presidential campaign. After reviewing these contacts, the special counsel did not find any conspiracy to violate U.S. law involving Russian-linked persons and any persons associated with the Trump campaign.
There was literally not only no collusion, there was zero effort by Trump or anyone around Trump to work with another country to defeat Clinton. He did that all by himself. There was literally zero evidence. Then they say, then the rebuttal from, complete imbeciles is that, there was a concerted effort by Twitter bots and the Facebook ads, and there was an internet company in that country. Yeah, and how many votes did it affect? Oh, you don't want to ask that question, right? You use the word, is there massive misconduct? Oh, were there massive amounts of Twitter bots and Facebook ads? I mean, you can use the flawed logic against Democrats and anyone who thinks that Trump was a Kremlin operative, but that he lost fair and square. See, their unsubstantiated concerns are litigated and investigated forever. Trump's immediate concerns that might not be substantiated by direct evidence at that moment are viewed as baseless claims against our republic. So, and this is when Adam Schiff was censored.
On this vote, the yeas are 213 and the nays are 209. With 6 answering present, the resolution adopted. Without objection, the motion to consider is laid on the table.
Standing Stones, thank you so very much for your super chat. Standing Stones 1776, thank you. Thank you. Democrats were yelling shame when one of the people who led the charge that Trump was a Kremlin operative was censured by Congress. They said shame. The shame was that they created a complete hoax that people still believe to this day. Democrats believe in things that don't... People who think that Trump told Americans to ingest something, or that there was both sides, or that he was a Kremlin operative, or that he made baseless claims. No, they were based on actual appeals to authority. John Ratcliffe backed Trump. Trey Traynor, I believe, backed Trump, or some of Trump's claims. 4 years ago. There were a number of people who backed Trump's claims. These were appeals to authority that substantiate Trump's suspicion. The appeals to authority that substantiated the suspicion that Democrats had against Trump were deemed as gospel. They literally were trying to find out for years if they could find one shred of truth within the Steele dossier. Could you imagine if Trump and Giuliani purchased a Steele dossier, that version, explaining all the misconduct that took place 4 years ago? Democrats would simply say, what are you talking about? You purchased a compilation of nonsense to say that, Biden stole it from Trump. They wouldn't ever want to be treated in the manner they've treated Trump. But anyway, let's continue.
House will be in order.
Raucous situation last night on Capitol Hill. The GOP-led House voting to censure Democrat Congressman Adam Schiff over past claims, very bold claims, that linked the former President Donald Trump to a Russian collusion scheme. The party line vote sparking chaos on the House floor. Schiff is just the 25th congressman in U.S. history to be censured and the first in 13 years. So this is a significant move here against Adam Schiff. With that, we bring in South Carolina Republican Nancy Mace. She serves on the House Oversight Committee. Great to have you here, Congresswoman Mace. What were your thoughts on what played out last night on the floor? It got noisy down there as they shouted shame, 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 while Speaker McCarthy, I should say, tried to get this business done.
Modern day Democrats who would look at the McCarthy era with disdain, rightfully so, are now, were a year ago, yelling shame that a leading Democrat that told the world Trump worked with the Kremlin was censured. So Democrats in this day and age have no problem accusing somebody of things they didn't do, working with another country, the same Cold War adversary that we've had and that apparently, still have to this day. You wonder how we go from President Obama saying the 80s want their foreign policy back to Romney during a debate to the Cold Warriors of the Democratic Party of today. But they went from a Russian reset with Hillary Clinton holding a big reset button to, we're going to stand up to, and then the invasions took place when Biden was in office. So how did that work out? But there was not a shred of evidence that Trump worked with the Kremlin, not even a shred of evidence. John Brennan literally stated he doesn't do evidence, he does intelligence.
Well, the irony certainly wasn't lost on any of us. He was censured and kicked off the Intel Committee for leaking classified information from the Intel Committee. And as the left and Democrats were cheering him on, leaking classified information is okay as long as your last name isn't Trump, because they're the same group of people that.
So if Schiff leaked classified information, which is what Congresswoman Mace is stating, what are the chances that Pam Bondi will investigate Liz Cheney for destroying government records, allegedly? Or allegedly Schiff leaking classified information, which I think perhaps is a felony.
That want to see Donald Trump spend the rest of his life in jail for having documents that he did not leak. And so what is shameful, ironically, was their behavior last night, because whatever the standard is, it needs to be applied to everybody. Adam Schiff is no hero here.
So that was very interesting from Congresswoman Mace. Now, this is really, really amusing right here.
Chair, we had a good meeting this week. Thank you for that. And I appreciated your priorities on human trafficking that you mentioned today, that work, as well as fentanyl. First of all, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minnesota, one of the premier offices in the country. This office has been instrumental in combating violent crime, dismantling street gangs, taking fentanyl off prosecutors and case agents who work hard every single day on our streets.
Senator, I think that is one of the most important things in our country right now. And there are so many good men and women within the Justice Department throughout our country, as well as all the law enforcement agencies. Yes, they work very hard and they will be supported.
I'm concerned about some of the proposals that could put cuts in the COPS program, burn JAG programs. I know you're familiar
with you on that incident.
Line assistant or to a United States attorney from a political person relating to a case is to be cut and curtailed. Do you agree with this statement?
Senator, yes, I believe that the Justice Department must be independent and must act independently. The number one job is to enforce the law fairly and even-handedly, and that's what will be done if I am confirmed as the Attorney General.
So you will provide an assurance to every member of this committee that the Justice Department will only follow the facts and the law, and the White House will play no role in cases investigated or brought?
These are the same Democrats who wanted to imprison Donald Trump right before the 2024 presidential contest. They literally wanted to send Trump to prison right before the presidential contest.
Senator, it will be my job, if confirmed as Attorney General, to make those decisions. Politics will not play a part. I've demonstrated that my entire career as a prosecutor, as Attorney General, and I will continue to do that if you confirm me as the 87th Attorney General of the United States of America.
In an earlier question, with some of my colleagues talked about China and the risk. Yet you have a nominee from this incoming administration, Kash Patel, the pick to head the FBI, have serious concerns about him.
They are so petrified, and for good reason, of an amazing, amazing pick, Kash Patel, like the best pick that could possibly be chosen by Trump.
Has referred to the FBI's Intel Division, which is responsible for protecting us from foreign adversaries like China, as, quote, the biggest problem the FBI has had. And he said that he wants to, quote, break that component out of the FBI.
There were literally text messages from agents disparaging, demeaning Trump, and not only Trump, also his President Trump's voters.
Do you agree?
I have not seen those comments from Mr. Patel. We can to protect our country. Again, Mr. Patel would fall under me and the Department of Justice, and I will ensure that all laws are followed, and so will he.
Okay. There are many decisions made by the FBI director, having seen a number of them do their work, that can be made. While I agree you would be the boss of Kash Patel, I'm not sure that you would be able to intervene with every decision or position that he had or know what he's doing. So let's continue. Do you agree it is the duty of the Justice Department to defend the laws Congress passes? And will you commit to do even when the president may disagree with an act campaigned against its passage or called for its repeal? President Reagan's AG, William French Smith, said the department policy was the department has the duty to defend an act of Congress whenever a reasonable argument can be made in its support. So I'm specifically referring to the 2022 law that I long led that we passed to empower Medicare to negotiate drug prices, major savings for seniors. Will you commit to defend the law against the lawsuits from Big Pharma?
Senator, I was involved in big pharma cases when I was Attorney General of the state of Florida, and I will commit to protect the laws of the United States of America.
Okay, thank you. That would also, same question, with the Supreme Court is going to be hearing a challenge to the Affordable Care Act's coverage of preventative services. And despite the fact that you twice joined suits to have the entire Affordable Care Act invalidated, will you commit to defending this law?
Yeah, I believe this is very different. It's a very isolated, it's different. It's not the entire Affordable Care Act, but I will, it's pending litigation, of course, within the department.
Okay. Since the 1990s, the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act has protected patients
Here's another wonderful exchange with Democrats.
Thank you, Chairman Grassley. Attorney General Bondi, in our previous conversation, we talked about criminal justice reform, and in particular, your contribution to the enactment of the First Step Act in the previous Trump administration. And I just want to talk with you about a couple of bipartisan initiatives in this area. Senators Cornyn, Lee, Durbin, Tillis, Booker, and I have introduced a bipartisan bill called the Safer Supervision Act. It focuses on the fact that federal probation and thus violate public safety concerns.
Yeah, and Senator Coons, that's why reentry, we call it, halfway houses, what you need, Senator Welch, are so important because many people deserve to go to prison, but many people are going to get out of prison. And we don't want a revolving door. We want to do everything we can to make productive members of society. And when someone goes to prison, I saw this every day. You saw this as a revolving door. People get out and first of all, I back up. We need drug programs. I could go on all. We need drug programs, more drug programs in our prison. We have to.
Safety-related fines and fees, but where the driver's license isn't suspended because they're dangerously driving. It's just because they haven't paid their fines and fees. And then without a driver's license, they lose their job or they're not able to get a job. Would you be willing to work with this bipartisan group of us on these two bills, Driving for Opportunity and the Safer Supervision Act?
I would love to read both of them, and I was unaware of that happening with driver's license.
Last two questions. Clemency, as we discussed, often near the end of an administration, there's a rush to consider pardons. Would you be willing to work at a more institutionalized clemency process where there aren't just lots?
Hunter was pardoned after Democrats and media told the world that yet again the Kremlin had a laptop that was a campaign to influence impressionable Americans away from the good Democrats into voting for Trump. And it's like now they want an institutional process for pardons.
Lots of commutations near the end of a term, but where there's a regular process where the DOJ and the clemency process is looked at to see whether there are reforms that should be made and recommendations that could be made to the president throughout his term.
I would love to look at that process. I can tell you that the pardons, the commutations that Joe Biden just made were abhorrent to me, absolutely abhorrent, taking people off death row. I looked at the facts of many of those cases, and they were so troubling.
Why would Democrats? See, the thing is, they're against capital punishment except for two specific crimes. Okay? If a person ends the life of another person because of a bigoted reason or because of a word, the T word, okay, just trying to be algorithmically friendly. So those two, they're for capital punishment. But then you look at the sentences that were the capital punishment sentences that were, ended. So it's just life in prison. These were the most despicable acts where you have like murderers taking the lives of innocent people. How on earth is that viewed as a morally justifiable position from Democrats who claim to be morally superior? And these are not examples of where there's a question mark. There's video footage. Like there's no question mark like with DNA. Like a person there's no question mark in many of these cases where you had an individual who took the life of an innocent human being or numerous innocent human beings. Only Democrats would then, in addition to a Hunter pardon, lessen the capital punishment into lifelong sentences and say, oh, it's moral. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand this. If you commit the worst act known to humanity brazenly. And there's no question, there's no question mark as to whether or not you're innocent. I'm not talking about like, the Innocence Project, which is a beautiful organization, finding out, okay, this was, 50 years ago, this person was, falsely accused or whatever, 40, but now you have video, DNA, so I'm talking about these were sentences, capital punishment that by the Biden administration just said, oh, life in prison. Wait a second. How do you come to that conclusion? How do you view that to be morally a moral position? I just don't get it. But let's continue.
To me, I don't know what process you intend to implement, but I would love to study that with you.
Well, we talked positively about your experience and mine with drug courts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I begin, I just want to remind us all for the record that the 34
answer that question. So let me get on to.
Would you like to?
I do have
I'd love to
questions for the second round.
You'll have a second round. Would you like to speak before I call on Senator Cruz?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Bondi, welcome. Thank you for your long career in public service, and thank you for your willingness to take on this incredibly important office. I have to say, I don't know that there is a more important position in this new administration than the position to which you have been nominated, Attorney General of the United States. I thought the exchange just a moment ago with Senator Hirono was illustrative. She asked you how you would respond if the president asked you to target his political enemies. It's rather striking because it's not a hypothetical. It has happened over the last 4 years. And I think perhaps the most tragic legacy of the Biden-Harris administration has been the politicization and the weaponization of the United States Department of Justice. And we don't need to ask hypothetically because Joe Biden publicly mused and allowed the New York Times to report it, calling on Merrick Garland, why will he not prosecute Trump more quickly? And Merrick Garland, sadly, he sat in that chair and promised to be apolitical, and he broke that promise almost the instant he walked into the Department of Justice. If you look on the west pediment of the Supreme Court of the United States, just above the entrance, there's a simple yet profound four-word phrase, equal justice under law. We have seen over the last 4 years a Department of Justice that systematically targeted the political opponents of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
This is, of course, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, everyone sees this. That's why Trump won the popular vote. Had they never tried to imprison Trump, had they never accused Trump of being a Kremlin operative, he would have still won 2 terms, but the Democrats would still be a functioning political party now. Who on earth do they have for 2028? I mean, J.D. Vance is going to run away with it.
And that systematically protected his friends and allies. And it is tragic to see the loss of confidence in the American people, in the Department of Justice, and in the FBI. I would note, I don't think there's an institution in America who has lost more respect from the American people than the FBI has in the last 4 years. That is a grotesque violation of the obligation of the Department of Justice and the FBI. So I want to start with just a very simple question. If you are confirmed as Attorney General, will you pledge to fairly and faithfully uphold the law regardless of party?
So help me God.
Amen. Look, and I want to be clear for folks at home. I don't want a Republican Department of Justice. I don't want a Democrat Department of Justice. I want a Department of Justice that follows the damn law. And I think the American people do too. That shouldn't be too much to expect. Now, I'm grateful to President Trump for nominating you. I think on any objective level, you're clearly qualified for this position. You have been a prosecutor for decades. You have been the elected Attorney General of the state of Florida, the third largest state in America, for 8 years. Let me ask you, in terms of your practice, how many criminal cases over the course of your career have you personally handled?
Handled thousands.
How many of those were before a jury?
Hundreds. I don't want to overstate, but hundreds. I was in a courtroom for many years. I tried 4 when I was an intern, jury trials. I think you had to try at least 20 in misdemeanor before you went to felony. Then you were in court every day, and I was also lead trial attorney for many years trying many cases. So.
And how many of those cases would have been before a judge?
Oh, hundreds and hundreds as well, but hundreds before a jury, I would assume.
And as Attorney General of Florida, how many lawyers did you supervise roughly?
Approximately 400, Senator.
Now, I also want to clarify something. During the course of this hearing, several Democrat senators have referred to you as President Trump's, quote, personal lawyer. Now I don't believe that is an...
Eric Holder was held in contempt of Congress. Merrick Garland was held in contempt of Congress. I mean, we could go on.
Accurate characterization. As I understand it, you represented President Trump as a White House special advisor during his first impeachment trial. Is that correct?
Within Office of White House Counsel, yes, Senator.
And is working within the White House counsel's office different than representing Donald J. Trump individually as his personal lawyer?
Absolutely.
How's it different?
You're working for the government. You're working for the Office of White House Counsel. You're not representing him in his personal capacity.
And so you have not represented him in his business affairs, in his personal life, or in any of the criminal trials he has faced?
No, Senator.
And, you know, when it comes to weaponization, it's worth noting that in more than 2 centuries of our nation's history, no president had previously been indicted. No president had previously been prosecuted until the Biden-Harris White House came along. And in the last 4 years, we've seen Donald Trump indicted and prosecuted not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 separate times.
And 2 assassination attempts, Senator.
I have to say, Javert from Les Mis would be chagrined at the efforts of Democrats to do anything possible to take him down. And I believe the real target in this was not President Trump, but it was the American people, that these prosecutions were brought because partisan prosecutors were terrified that the American people would do exactly what they did in November of 2024 and vote to reelect Donald J. Trump.
By 77.3%. Million Americans, 77.3 million Americans.
Will you commit every day as Attorney General to follow the law, to follow the Constitution?
I will be back tonight, probably around 10 p.m., 9 or 10, probably 10 p.m. Eastern for the second live stream. We'll do 2 live streams a day from here on out. And we definitely will do 2 live streams a day, possibly even 3 if it's a really interesting day. But there's going to be a lot of indictments. You know, Kash Patel, John Ratcliffe. I think we'll do the John Ratcliffe hearing tonight. Even the media has changed its tune. The headlines are less apoplectic. Go and read the headlines pertaining to John Ratcliffe. I mean, benign, just like almost as if a Democrat was nominated to the role of Central Intelligence Chief. I mean, it's a completely new political paradigm. Even media is slowly gravitating towards political power. And the epicenter of political power in Washington, D.C. will be the Donald J. Trump administration. No longer will you have people, betraying him left and right. Kash Patel, John Radcliffe, Tulsi Gabbard, Pam Bondi, RFK Jr., Elon Musk. Okay? And there's going to be a great many indictments, I think, of people who leaked classified data but weren't charged. Potentially even senators on the Democratic Party side that did that. Hit subscribe to this channel, people. I'll see you